What is up, guys? My name's Jordan, back with my old man Howie. And in this episode of the GoToGuys, we discuss our top 10 fantasy football wide receivers.
Welcome to another episode of the Go-To Guys. As Jordan said, we're back to talk about fantasy wide receivers, getting really pumped. We're in the heart of draft season, and the NFL season is 3 weeks away from kickoff. It's a real exciting time for all of the NFL and fantasy fans. And like Jordan said, looking forward to talking about wide receivers today.
I want to be excited, but how many injuries have there been this offseason? I mean, you got Ashton Genty, you got Mike Evans. I feel like everyone on the 49ers is injured, and now their owner is practically out of commission for reasons that we won't talk about. But
Yeah, no, we don't have to go there.
it's just been a crazy, just injury-filled offseason, and, hopefully people start getting healthy soon because obviously everyone wants a healthy team to start the year in fantasy.
No, definitely. I feel like we say every year, I can't believe all these injuries, but that's usually when the season starts. Mike Evans, I think, is actually back at practice. I think Christian McCaffrey is going to be back at practice. But it's almost like even though star players aren't getting a lot of reps in games, they're getting hurt in practice. That used to not happen in prior years. So it's just very, very strange. I mean, you sort of feel like the NFL athletes are some of the greatest athletes in the world, and people always talk about what things were like in the 70s and 80s when guys would just get concussions and continue to play, get injuries and continues to play. But I don't know if people are overworking their bodies or what, but man, it doesn't end.
Well, lucky for us, I don't think there's many wide receiver injuries in terms of the top 10 that we're about to do, so
Knock on wood. Knock on wood.
knock on wood, let's get into it. Similar concept to the last episode that we did. We're going to go back and forth in a snake draft order formation. I'll start because I let the old man go first last time, but
Hey, I thought, respect your elders. Just
I
kidding.
guess so. But we're going to go back and forth. I'll start us off. So the wide receiver one across all drafts, in my opinion, standard, half PPR, because of the volume he gets, no matter the quarterback, Jamar Chase. I mean, loaded offense in Cincinnati. You got Joe Burrow, you got T. Higgins, you got Chase Brown, and then you got Jamar Chase. You would think because of how many people are on this offense, he might be a bit limited. You saw this with CeeDee Lamb last year with George Pickens being there and Javonte Williams. CeeDee Lamb, obviously great, obviously a top wide receiver, but he wasn't the overall number one guy that we've usually seen in prior years where he's ranked in the top 2 or 3. But Jamar Chase, doesn't matter the quarterback. And as we know, Joe Burrow hasn't been healthy over the past couple of years, or fully healthy over the past couple of years. Seems to be a star year in and year out, no matter who's throwing to him, no matter what the year is. And that is why he's my number one across all fantasy drafts.
Yeah, I mean, just to add a little bit more specifics to why Jamar has the most upside and probably the highest floor of any wide receiver. Since he's D's not going to be that strong, they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. Their offensive line still looks like it's not necessarily right. They did invest in the offseason in some players there, but maybe it will take a little bit of time to get that going. Last year, 125 receptions, over 1,400 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns, 185 targets, and over 88 receiving yards per game. 185 targets is a key stat. He's not necessarily dependent on efficiency or a handful of long touchdowns. It's just Cincinnati's going to feed him the ball. 2024, when Joe Burrow was healthy, he had 17 touchdowns. I mean, that's just great because we talk about how certain players will have 2 good games and then 2 down games, not necessarily consistent. You got to hope that you win the weeks that they have big games. But again, when you're averaging 88 yards weekly, that's great. especially half PPR or PPR, how could you go wrong with taking Jamar Chase number one? You can't.
And that's why I took him.
No, I agree. I'm just adding a little bit more, detail as to reasons. So I'm actually going to skip the obvious guy next because he hasn't been fully practicing. So I will leave him to you or for my next pick. Or for my next pick, but I don't think he'll drop down to number 4. But I'm going to actually go with JSN at number 2. Again, you think about the fact that Kenneth Walker is no longer in Seattle. You have a hard time naming the number 2 wide receiver in Seattle. I guess it's Rashid Shaheed. But JSN, second full season in the league last year, and probably had the most impressive statistical season of any wide receiver in 2025. 119 catches, 1,709, which exceeds Jamar Chase's 1,412 yards by over 300 yards. That's pretty amazing when you're talking about Chase. And he had 10 touchdowns, led the NFL with an incredible 15 yards per catch. I mean, that's amazing. 163 targets, which is a little bit less than Jamar Chase, and a 36% target. That could go up this year. That could go up when you think about that. I don't know that he could get it close to 1,800 yards receiving this year, but even if he gets 16 yards or 1,500 yards, that's still an elite season. So I'm going to go with JSN number 2, just because there's not a lot of other talent out there in Seattle to get the ball. And I think that Sam Darnold's going to be feeding him left and right.
Agreed.
Jordan?
Agreed. And I don't know why I said snake before. We'll just go the same format as last time, back and forth. But I do.
Alternate. Just
Yeah,
alternating.
we'll alternate. But JSN, I mean, I don't know if he's going to be double team, triple team, quadruple teams. Like, who else is getting the ball in Seattle? I know they have decent running backs. They have the rookie Price. They have Charbonnet, who's going to be out a little bit. But it just, I think we spoke about it on the last episode. Just crazy how the Seahawks I know their defense is stellar, but for them to just go all the way with not a very flashy, high named offense. I know they had Kenneth Walker. It's just very impressive. But that brings us to the third receiver. I'm also going to shy away from the guy that you mentioned before just because of the off-field, on-field
I
issue.
didn't even name him, by the way. So
No, I
I'm
know. So
sure
I'm not
most
going to name
people
him
know
either.
at this point.
We'll keep him suspenseful. But I'm actually going to go with a guy who was on a team last year that finished last in their division. I don't think a lot of people realize they finished last in their division, but Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Detroit Lions. This team was, I think, 15-2 the year before. And I know they went 8-9 last year, so obviously they're in a tough division for them to finish last with an 8-9 record or a 9-8 record. But just a couple stats for Amon-Ra, because you gave them before for JSN and Chase. Amon-Ra has finished exactly third in receivers in terms of fantasy points for 3 seasons in a row. So obviously the consistency's there. He hasn't ranked lower than fourth in catches, yards, and touchdown each year. And last year, I didn't even think Amon-Ra was that stellar last year, but he had a career high in target share at 31.6%. So obviously he gets the ball thrown to him. Consistency's there year in and year out. He's on a high-powered offense that loves to throw the ball. Dan Campbell loves to go for it on fourth down. He loves doing these flashy plays. And I know Gibbs is there. They have Laporta, who's actually going to be out probably a couple weeks to start the year. They have Jameson Williamson, whatever his name is. But they're just a high-powered offense in a loaded division. So whether they're blowing out opponents or they're just competing at a high level with these teams in their division who don't have the best defenses like the Bears, Packers, Vikings, Amon-Ra is going to get the ball as long as he stays healthy. So I think that stays the same this year and for years to come. He's young, he's quick, he usually stays healthy, and that's why he's my pick for the third best receiver in our draft.
Yeah, I can't disagree with him. On paper, the Lions supposedly have one of the easiest schedules in the league. I don't really buy into that too much because the way the NFL is set up now, except for a couple teams that are just really, really bad, it could change year to year.
Yep.
But they play at least half their games indoors, plus playing Minnesota twice in their division. So you're talking about 10 games indoors. I agree with you. And this is something I saw to describe Amon-Ra St. Brown, boring but extremely difficult to screw up. And there are experts out there who you'll follow that they're looking for guys who have a history of not getting injured, especially when you're going to spend like a first or second round pick. Amon-Ra is about as safe as it gets
Which means
if
he's
you
getting
want
injured first
consistency.
quarter of week 1.
Well, it's possible, but we could say that about any of these guys.
That's true.
So my next pick, I have to go with him now because we just can't let him fall that far. Might have had one of the strangest off seasons of any player in the NFL. And that's saying a lot because there are some people with some pretty strange off seasons.
And it's still not done yet.
Still not done yet. Puka Nacua. I mean, just look at his stats for last year. If he could stay healthy and on the field and not get suspended, 129 catches, 715 yards. And again, these things stand out when you're listening to us talk. When you talk about JSN having 100 yards, Jamar Chase only having over 1,400, 1,715 yards, 10 touchdowns, 166 targets. He averaged, because I think he might have missed a game or two, he averaged 107 receiving yards per game and had 27 receptions of 20 plus yards. Now go back to Jamar Chase. I was raving about him being consistent, averaging 88 yards a game. Puka averaged almost 20 yards a game more. That is just crazy. And Devontae Adams, who's probably the next best wide receiver on that team, is probably just from an age standpoint going to slow down a little bit this upcoming season. I mean, Puka's all over the place. I don't know, like, other than like an Antonio Brown, I don't know that there's another guy that you can compare to Puka in terms of the catches and the yards per catch and the targets and the overall yards.
He's ridiculous.
I mean, he's ridiculous. Just again, Cooper Kupp was in this position beforehand, and we used to say Cooper Kupp was ridiculous. Puka's 24. He could be doing this for 6 or 7 more years. Pretty crazy. Although Matthew Stafford probably won't be around that long. But anyway,
They got
how could we let him fall any further?
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on Puka?
I mean, you pretty much said it all. I would be shocked if the Rams don't make it back to the NFC Championship, if not even the Super Bowl. They're just stacked top to bottom. And the good thing, if you're a Puka owner, their division's loaded in terms of talent. So they're always going to be in tough games. The 49ers always play the Rams tough. The Seahawks, as we saw last year, they beat them. They beat the Rams twice in the regular season, or once in the regular season, then once in the playoffs. And those games were absolute blowouts. And you remember how high the lines were and how close the margins were. It was absolutely ridiculous. So once again, I agree with you, Puka. As long as he stays healthy and as long as he doesn't do anything crazy, like bite someone, even though he already did that,
So weird.
he has to
It's
be.
an allegation. It's an
Yeah,
allegation. They never,
an allegation. But
connected the bite marks.
I agree with you. He definitely needs to be up there, and he honestly has an argument for being number 1.
Yep.
But with that being said, we're on to number 5. Number 5's alive.
Bum.
And I'm going to go with a guy who I actually mentioned earlier, CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb's a bit tricky when looking at, the offense as a whole, because when you look at the other 4 ahead of him, I think we can both agree they're just a standout guy. Chase, Amon-Ra, Puka, just all these guys are just like the number 1 guys on their team. CeeDee's a bit different because George Pickens was there last year for the first year, and he was stellar. Both of them were great on the field, and it's honestly surprising how they didn't make the playoffs with both of them there. But CeeDee Lamb, I think, is just a step ahead of Pickens in terms of fantasy. He's consistent. He catches the ball. Pickens is more of a deep threat, and he'll catch the ball, but CD does everything. He could be in the slot. He could catch the deep ball. He could be in the backfield for a little pitch, and he'll get the job done. And that's why he's my number 5. And I think the Cowboys this year, people like to hate on Dak Prescott. I don't know if it's because people think he's overrated or he's on the Cowboys. He gets the job done. I think he's one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the NFL. If you look at his stats, he's consistent year in, year out. Doesn't mean he's going to make the playoffs, but he's able to move the ball down the field, and the Cowboys defense sucks. So they're always going to be in high scoring games. They're in a division where there's some high powered offenses. You have the Eagles, who are usually pretty good. Jaden Daniels is back on the Commanders, and the Giants, assuming Scadaboo and Dart don't collide heads and get off the field in week 1, they're always going to be throwing the ball against these teams. They're always going to be in high scoring games. And CD is always going to have the ball thrown to him. And if it's not going to him, it's going to Pickens. But those are really the only 2 guys there that are catching the ball on the offense. So CD's my number 5. I know he was a bit up and down last year at some points, but still very consistent, still gets the job done. High target share. He's my number 5, or he's the number 5 in this draft.
Yeah, just you said it all, but one comment I'd make about Dak, he gets knocked on, not necessarily because of fantasy, but just because similar to like Tony Romo, just can't win the big game. The owner likes to talk a lot and stuff like that. And, Cowboys are a lot of flash, but at the end of the day, when it comes right down to it, you just can't win the big game in the playoffs, unfortunately. Number 6, I'm going to go to a guy who has already perennially been the top wide receiver in the NFL multiple years. He's been a victim, in particular last year, of bad quarterback play. And this year, I think he's going to be on the comeback. And it's Justin Jefferson on the Minnesota Vikings. Kyler Murray's the quarterback this year. Unfortunately, JJ McCarthy, who Jordan and I were big fans of because Jordan went to Michigan and they played into his strengths, I guess, at that school. But man, he's a disaster.
It's early,
it's like,
It's early.
It's early, but I mean, you don't even see the signs of hope. But who knows? Because Sam Darnold, when he was with Minnesota throwing the ball to Justin Jefferson was the top receiver in the game. In fact, he came out today and he said he thinks people are sleeping on him. And he's going to remind everybody this year why he's the top receiver in the league. So, in 2025, actually, I'm looking at the wrong guy in terms of his stats for last year.
It wasn't good, to say the least.
It was not good. It was not good. I didn't draft him last year. I drafted him the year before. And it was just extremely disappointing. And I remember I actually traded him late in the season and got a I got a boatload of crap from some of the people in my league, even though I think I got like McConkey back, who went on a tear. It ended up being the right thing to do, not necessarily name value, but fantasy value. But yeah, I'm looking for Justin Jefferson. I mean, arguably he could be the comeback player of the year after last year.
Agreed. I mean, I'm not pretty high, but Kyler Murray, if you look at what he's done in prior years, he's actually been relatively consistent. I know last year the Cardinals were terrible, but there was one year, I think it might have been 4 or 5 years ago, the Cardinals started 9-0. They got bounced in the first round, and I know injuries happened, but they were 9-0, and the Cardinals were relatively good. And now you give Kyler Murray, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, a solid backfield. TJ Hawkinson. They're not a bad team, and I think they're going to surprise some people in a tough division. I think the Packers and Bears, they're going to be good, but the Vikings are definitely a team to keep an eye on this year.
It's going to be all about Kyler. That's what it comes down to. He's got to stay healthy, get these guys the ball.
Yep. And I'm going to move on to number 7 in this draft. I think I've drafted this guy 3 years in a row just because of consistency. However, last year he was up and down because the team as a whole is up and down. But I'm going to go with A.J. Brown. New team, new quarterback. And he's on a team that went to the Super Bowl last year. I know people are going to say, oh, their schedule was a cakewalk. Look at who they played in the playoffs. They went up against Jarrett Stidham and CJ Stroud, who was terrible. Patriots are good. They're a good team. They're in a terrible division. I know the Bills are going to be good, or at least we think they're going to be good, but the Dolphins and Jets are horrible. And Drake May loves to throw the ball, and Vrabel loves to keep him in late into the game, no matter how much you're beating a team by. With that being said, A.J. Brown, he's just looking at him, big guy, can go up, can beat anyone in a one-on-one, can catch the ball from wherever on the field. And Drake May is probably one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the NFL. So when you have a guy that pretty much catches everything and a guy that could throw to pretty much anywhere on the field, you get a pretty good, well, what's the word? Pretty good combination. I think A.J. Brown's a little bit on the older side. The Patriots actually traded one of their receivers away today. So he's not,
How old is he?
I think he's close to 30 now, right?
Oh, he's only been in the league, what, 5 years?
Born in 1997, yeah, turning 30 next year.
Wow.
So, I mean, he was on the Titans, the Eagles, and he's been good year in, year out. And I just think the Patriots made the bet. I think everyone expected A.J. Brown to go to the Patriots just based off like the offseason talk. But I think he's in a great spot. I think having Drake May as his quarterback is going to help him a ton. And if he's able to stay healthy, he has the potential to put up some big numbers. And if you look back to some prior years, I think he probably put up some of the biggest numbers out of any of the receivers we named before. I know Jamar Chase and Puka had their 40 to 50 point games, but there are times where A.J. Brown would go on like 5 or 6 game stretches where he would put up 25 to 30 points, like 9 receptions, 150 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And the Eagles were great with him. I know they had their shaky years, but they were able to make the playoffs with him. He was able to perform year in, year out. And now he's literally, I think, the only big name, aside from maybe Romeo Doubs, who's not even a big name, on the Patriots. And Drake May is throwing the ball to him. So I like A.J. Brown at the number 7. I think he's going to have somewhat of a bounce back year if you even want to consider that. But Patriots are good. Drake May is good. A.J. Brown is still stellar. And that's why he's my number 7.
Yep. I think he's a good pick. He's back with Vrabel. The one thing about A.J. Brown, and maybe it's just because he wasn't that motivated in Philly at times, because his relationship, I guess, with Jalen Hurts is he does have some crazy drops. That's the one thing I remember. So I'm going to go with number 8. I'm going to go with Nico Collins. You know, Nico had great stats last year. He missed a couple of games. But looking at some of his stats, okay, and last year he had 71 catches, over 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns. Again, he missed some games because of injury. He averaged 15.7 yards a catch, which is up there with some of the better players that we talked about being taken earlier in the draft. He's a huge target in the red zone. And the Texans don't really have a lot of other wide receivers. As Jordan said, they just traded for one of them today. And is there
Well, Tank Dell is probably going to be out a little bit, and Hutchinson's out for the
he's
year.
banged up. Yeah. And then who's their tight end? Is it Dalton Schultz?
I believe so. No
Yeah,
one
I think
to worry about.
yeah, I think he'd also be a good pick to take there. So I mean, I think Nico is primed for the best year of his career. You know, again, Texans have a ridiculous defense, you know, which keeps the scores low. But Nico's still going to get his volume no matter what.
I would have to agree. I would have to agree.
It's so funny though, doing this exercise. Like when you start to get down to 9 or 10, it's like
So,
it's tough to who to go with because it feels like there's almost like a drop off. Guys get riskier.
yep.
You know, they're the number 2 wide receiver or the 1A wide receiver in an offense that has a CD Lamb. So interested to see who you got for 9 because I think I know who I got for number 10.
Yep. I mean, I'm only going with this guy just because of his end of year production and some of the circumstances given of what has happened so far this offseason. I'm going to go very close, by the way, among like the next 4 that we would pick, but I'm going to go with Chris Olave. And I'll tell you why.
Wow. He's up. That's way up there, dude.
Tyler Shug's the quarterback.
Suge Knight.
Suge Knight. A lot of people didn't expect much from him. I think Spencer Rattler was a quarterback at one point last year. Olave was relatively, I think, a top 10 receiver the entire year. And by the end of the year, Olave was performing every single game, year or game in, game out, always getting the ball, catching the ball. Rashishi got traded middle of the year. Olave was really the only guy there. They draft Jordan Tyson, so you're like, oh, maybe Olave won't be as, proficient in the red zone, won't get the ball as much during the game. Jordan Tyson's out. So who do the Saints have? I mean, Olave's
Kamara,
Kamara. I don't. They also have Travis
he's hurt
Etienne.
too, actually.
Yes, I think the only other guy notable on the offense is Travis Etienne, and he's in the backfield. So Olave is gonna be the only guy in the offense in a very weak division, by the way, just getting the ball fed to him by a decent quarterback. Who knows when Jordan Tyson's going to come back? He's a rookie. They're going to want to keep him healthy in the long term. And in a very bad division, why wouldn't you want Olave as like a second or third rounder? Compared to the other guys before, CeeDee Lamb is Pickens by him. I know you're probably going to go CeeDee Lamb over Olave 9 out of 10 times, 10 out of 10 times, but we're getting into this area where it's like late second, early third round. You'll probably mention one of these guys, but a Drake London with a quarterback.
Well, that's the thing with me with Drake London. If I knew that Penix was going to be healthy, and he was practicing today,
Yeah.
but I mean, I just don't think Atlanta's going to be that good this year. You know, I just don't. But I mean, I think that Drake London will be in the top 15. I'm just not confident putting him in the top 10 when you have some of these other scenarios. And George Pickens, who had a phenomenal season last year, but when you've got him and CD, I think they both can be really good. I'm just not sure both of them could be in the top 10.
Yep, I agree. And just real quick before you get it, last year in the playoffs, fantasy playoffs, Olave week 15, touchdown, 6 receptions, 85 yards. Week 16, 2 touchdowns, 10 receptions, 148 yards. Week 17, the championship, 1 touchdown, 8 receptions, 119 yards. He was an absolute beast towards the end of the year. And I expect that to continue this year, especially after signing a huge extension.
Yep. Now, we talked about some of the guys who would probably be in consideration to be in the top 10 if it wasn't for extenuating circumstances. So my number 10 guy, who's been getting a lot of attention over the past week because Matthew Berry selected him as his ride or die, is Devontae Smith. And what Matthew Berry was saying, and I can't disagree with, is the fact that Devontae's basically already done it. I mean, his floor is so high. A.J. Brown is now gone from Philadelphia. And this gets back into that 1-1A scenario when you have like a Pickens and a CeeDee Lamb. Again, A.J. Brown is gone. Last year, with A.J. Brown there, Devontae Smith had 77 catches, over 1,000 yards receiving, 4 TDs, a little bit low, but that's going to grow. And that was on 113 targets. He's now the clear number 1 wide receiver in Philadelphia. In games where A.J. Brown didn't play, Smith had got almost a 33% target share.
That's crazy.
And in 2022, it's hard to believe, again, Devontae Smith has been in the league for like 5-6 years already. In 2022, with A.J. Brown, he had 95 receptions, 1,200 yards receiving, and 7 touchdowns. I mean, he is primed for a really, really good year. I think there's a good chance if he stays healthy, Devontae Smith could really be a top 5 wide receiver in the league this year. And again, the bloom's off the rose in terms of him being under the radar now that there's a lot of focus on him after Matthew Berry did his analysis. But again, how can you argue? He's essentially the number 1 wide receiver in an offense that scores a tremendous amount. I know you have Jalen there with his tush pushes, and you got Barkley there.
And Mekhi Lemon, don't forget, who's their wide receiver too.
Is it Malachi? Malachi Lemon? Yeah. But I'm going with Devontae Smith. I feel good about him being there.
I like it. And just before we end, I think just to run through some honorable mentions, London, Pickens, we both mentioned them. Rashee Rice is a massive wild card because he could be a top 5 and he could also be like in the 40 to 50 range, depending on how his rest of the season plays out and the rest of the offseason plays out. And I think Malik Neighbors, if he's fully healthy,
I think Malik. Yeah. I think Malik more so because we've seen what he can do.
Yeah,
it looks like he had his contact jersey back on today. And again, like what you said with Rashee Rice, it's like you want, if you're making a choice between two guys, you want to go with the guy who has the history of being consistent,
Yeah,
not getting into trouble. Again, like it just feels like it's Rasheed Rice. He's not Josh Gordon, but it just seems like there's a lot there to unpack with him. So I would rather go with the consistent guy over the inconsistent guy.
agreed. But that pretty much does it. I'm I'm getting excited talking about it. There's just so many receivers, so many options, and I'm sure I'm going to pick the one that gets injured in week 1. But with that being said, thank you
Better
guys
you
again for
than me.
what?
Better you than me.
Yeah. But thank you guys for listening. We're going to keep doing more rankings as the season gets closer. Quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends. Who knows? Maybe we'll do defenses and kickers, which, as my old man knows, I love so much.
Shabuzi.
Okay, Shabuzi. But with that being said, once again, thank you guys for listening. Hopefully more videos coming out more consistently throughout the week. Love the love that we're getting. Love the love. Love the love that we're getting on the Instagram with our skits.
We love the love. It's a double love.
It's a double love. And thank you guys
Tune
again.
in next time.
I was going to say thank you guys again and tune in next time for another episode of
The Go-To.
See ya.